different diverse topics as relating to money and finance. But this morning, right now, the first session, we want to look at something very, very fundamental, something very, very vital, which has to do with our behavior. Because behavior is very, very important. Behavior is very, very important in anything or whatever we do. I said that money is an integral part of our lives. How many of us agree? Very, very integral. And it's also important to know that even in scriptures, it says, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 19 says, money is the answer for everything. Another version or a part of scripture says, money is a defense. How many of you know that even God himself in scriptures, while compared himself to money? He says you cannot serve God and mammon. Some people say God of money. Because think about it. Let us think about it. How many of us, you want to execute a project and you have money? How many of you actually pray before going ahead to execute? Do you know that oftentimes it is when you don't have money that forces you to pray, but if you have the money, you go ahead to execute? So money is very, very important. Money is very, very vital as long as we are here on earth. And 3 John verse 2 says, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. You'll also find out that the only way for you to have financial peace is also determinant on the information that you have to act upon. Because it is one thing to have information, it is another thing to actually act. It is acting upon that information that gives the results. So, but this morning, I'm not preaching. I'm just trying to lay a foundation. I'm not preaching. We already have a video to do all of that for us. And the context is the United States, but we will be bringing it into our context. One of the things we need to also understand, which is foundational, is that principles are universal. It works anywhere in the world, wherever you find yourself. It works. But its adaptation may be different from nation to nation or from city to city. And so this morning, and we'll also have a guest of panelists that will also join me in discussing the lessons we will be learning from this video this morning, or from this teaching by Dave Ramsey this morning. And the very first person is, you will find out that the name, the suffix, is this suffix? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Apologies, sir. Papa Banwo Smith. It's actually Papa Banwo Smith. You know, we have two Smiths in the house, so it's a typographical error. Papa Banwo Smith. I wrote in front, a retiree. And I'm not just bringing him up because he's a retiree, because he's old. No, but because he has a wealth of experience that we need to glean from. You know, one of the things that fascinates me about this, let me call him gentleman, is the fact that he has already bought his grave. Do you think someone that doesn't have money buys a grave? And secondly, he has investment for his children's children. Not just for his children, for his children's children. That means for his grandchildren. Do you think we need to learn from such a person? Please put your hands together as I welcome to the podium Papa Banwo Smith. Like I said, I made a mistake in the name. Please, sir, just come forward. It will be on my panel this morning. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Let's put our hands together for him. Thank you very, very much, sir. It's actually a short notice we gave to him, and he graciously agreed to join us. Let's put our hands together again for him. Thank you very much, sir. Now, the second person, also a female, this time around a female, that I brought in to be on my panel to discuss this topic with us, is also someone I know very well. She works in the banking industry. She's a corporate executive. And I know most of these things, if not all of these things, in actual fact, she does practice. She's had a few lessons in life she's learned from, but she actually practices most, if not all of the things we are talking about this morning. Please welcome with me Mrs. Lola Oladele Ojo. She's a corporate executive in one of the top banks in this country. And my name is Olumide Olalekon. Put your hands together for me now. So like I said, I think I need to tag this something show. It looks like a show now. Money show. Thank you very much. Now, as I was saying that we'll be watching this video clip. The video clip is just about 30 minutes long, but we'll be pausing at different intervals to have a discussion. There is a mic in the audience there, somewhere around the media desk. So for anybody in the audience to also talk. So the panelists will have an opportunity to talk. The audience too will have an opportunity to talk. It's an interaction that we want to have this morning. So please just relax, feel free, enjoy the teaching by Dave Ramsey, and afterwards we will come back to discuss. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you. That's cool. You guys are awesome. You're awesome. Well, I am so honored to be here. This is an incredible opportunity to get to share with you today and share with the folks all around the world through this process that Craig and his team has put together. It is an amazing thing to step back and see what God is doing all around the world. I get to travel a lot and see a lot of this kind of stuff, and it's happening out there. You don't see it on the news, but it's happening out there. It's happening. And I get to travel to places like this and get to see people like you. And we're going to talk a little bit about money today. You know what I found out about money? Money's fun. If you got some. You know, and you know, the other thing I found out about money is most people, well, aren't doing real good. You know? I mean, if you've made big time mistakes with money, you know what that makes you? Over 12. Most people have. How many of you ever done something stupid? Raise your hand. Yeah, man, I tell you, how many of you didn't raise your hand have a problem with lying? I mean, it's a real deal out there. It's easy to fall over in this money thing. And the weird thing is we all think everybody else is the one that has got it together, and we're the only stupid ones. The devil has lied to us. He's told us this shame and guilt story about ourselves and made us believe it. When I went broke 20 years ago and lost everything and had to start completely over, I believed I was the only one that had ever done something that stupid, that completely out of control. And I did go broke. I've got a PhD in DUMB. I am fully qualified to teach this stuff. I started with nothing and grew up not rich. How many of you guys grew up not rich? I grew up not rich, and I remember graduating from college broke and married my beautiful wife Sharon. We started off broke. We were eating off a card table, driving a 1902 Pinto. Now, you remember how you start out. You know what I'm talking about. We ain't got money, honey, but we got love. And it's a good thing, too, because we ain't got no money. And I started buying and selling real estate. This was back in the 80s, 20 years ago. And I was pretty good at it. I'm kind of a math nerd, and I grew up in the real estate business. And by the time I was 26 years old, I had a little over $1 million in real estate, net worth $4 million in real estate, making $250,000 a year. It was fun. We were having a blast. You know, sometimes I hear these people say, all those rich people are miserable. Now, I'm not here to tell you money's going to make you happy, and I'm not here to tell you it makes you a good Christian or any of that kind of stuff. That's not my gig. It's not what I do. I don't have enough hair to teach that material. But the truth is, the thing is that I have found, though, is that as we made all of that money, it didn't fix our lives. It just made us more of who we already were. The moral of the story is if you get rich and you're a jerk, you just become a colossal jerk. If you get rich and you have a big heart, they call you a giver, and they give it a big long name, a philanthropist. If you get rich, you become more of what you are as you build wealth. So be careful of what you are. We learned that on the way up, and we learned it on the way down. Because I'd borrowed too much money, and the bank got sold to another bank, and they called our notes. Step up on this rug, and we will pull it. And I went, yes, that's me. Young and stupid. And I did it. And they called our notes. Not because we had done anything wrong, not because we'd done anything illegal or immoral. They freaked out. Bankers freak out sometimes. Have you all noticed? And we spent the next 2.5 years of our life losing everything we owned. We were sued and foreclosed on, and finally, with a brand new baby and a toddler and a marriage hanging on by a thread, we were bankrupt. This stuff will mess with your marriage, won't it? Number one cause of divorce in North America today, money fights and money problems. Number one thing people fight about in their marriage is money. Well, we did. Sharon would have left, she just didn't have the money. I mean, we fought, baby. We didn't get a divorce. We held on to each other, but sometimes it was just to get a better grip. Y'all know what I'm talking about. She's from the hills of East Tennessee. Frying pan throwing there's an Olympic event. And we hit bottom. I was on one of these news stations. I do all this TV work these days, and one of these talking heads asked me the other day, so you started with nothing and you became a millionaire and then you lost everything and now you're a multimillionaire. So how did you bounce back? I was like, dude, when you fall that far, you really don't bounce. It's more of a splat. I sat around and blamed everybody else. You ever blame everybody else when you do something stupid? Kind of a problem in our culture today, you know. Turns out McDonald's does serve hot coffee. So, you know, I sat there, and the weird thing was I do everything backwards. I didn't grow up in church, and I met God on the way up. Most people meet him, you know, at the bottom of their mess, right? But I met him on the way up. I got to know him on the way down. It'll teach you. This thing called pain, it'll make you open a Bible. See, I've got all these letters and licenses and things after my name that says I'm supposed to know something about money. And there I sat, broke. No money. And then this guy told me the Bible had some stuff to say about money, and I went, really? Okay. I'll try that one. Mine didn't work. And I started studying people like Larry Burkett and Ron Blue and many of the other great writers in Christianity around the world that have opened the scriptures for us on this subject. And I discovered this really easy stuff. It's easy to understand, and it works every time, but it's really hard to do. Because biblical finance, like so many other things, personal finance, the attributes and things you need in your life to be able to win with money, well, it's about 80% behavior. It's only about 20% head knowledge. Most of you know what to do. You're just not doing it. You're like me. The problem with my money is this idiot I shave with. The guy in my mirror is my issue. If I can get him to behave, he can be skinny and rich. So the stuff we're going to talk about out of the Bible, it's not like hard to understand. It's devastatingly easy to understand. You're going to be going, oh good, I had a V8. It really does work that way. It's pretty easy stuff. So, you know, we're going to write some of this down and we're going to think about it as we go. I want to cover 5 of the basics of biblical finance. Some of the first things I learned, and I still believe they're probably the most important things I've ever learned in my life about money, and I have learned a lot about money over the years. But this stuff, if you do these 5 things, it works every single time. It'll take some time. Now, if you're looking for easy, it's not going to work. We don't sell microwaves here. We sell crock pots. It's going to take a while. You got to cook it a while, but it'll taste better. Have you noticed most things in your spiritual life are that way? They're not instantaneous. You don't get this zzz, and all of a sudden you're a perfect husband. Didn't work that way. No, took 27 years and still not even close to the word perfect. I'm working on the P part still. But, you know, it's a process, isn't it? And this thing called money is the same exact thing. But to the extent you and your family will engage in these 5 activities, you will win with money. First thing you want to do if you want to win with money is you need to learn to get out of...
Thank you very much. That's the first portion of the video clip this morning. And I want to believe that some of us might have challenges of hearing, particularly his accent, while discussing, but I want to believe that most of us will be able to relate with most of the things he has talked about. How many of us have been in financial mess at one point or the other in our lives before? And like he said, if your hand is not raised, then that means you have problem with lying. Because at one point or the other, we must have. Even the richest men in the world, at some point in their lives, bankruptcy is not something that is so common in our climb. We are filing for bankruptcy, but doesn't mean that we don't go broke in this environment. Now, just quickly to look at some of the things that he just mentioned. He mentioned the fact that at some point in our lives, we've made a mistake with money. And sometimes the mistake will be genuinely losing money out of investment, and sometimes it's actually out of stupidity, buying, especially getting back to our economic study. There are things that they've taught us. For example, they taught us that a house is an asset. But it is only a house that earns money that is an asset. A house that you live in is a liability because you spend money on it. They've told us that a car is an asset. But how many of you does your car generate money for you? But those are some of the things they've taught us in school. So at some point in time, we've had our fingers burnt, especially in the areas of money. He also said something which I think is also very important. Says that everyone else has gotten it together except me. We look at everybody else and we think, oh, their life is so perfect. They have things going on, things doing well. Take, for example, if we've not read the story of Bill Gates, for example, you will think, wow, Bill Gates just had a smooth life, smooth running, and stuff like that. Now, we'll just quickly get down with my panelists. I'll start with Papa Smith. He should just share with us his experience with handling finances and the downturns and the upturns as regards finances.
Thank you very much, Lumide. I will like us first to look at the backgrounds of Ramsey and ours. Olumide has said it all. If we dwell on principles, we won't go wrong. And before we go on, I think we should all focus on the fact that in America, they live on credit. America is a credit society. If I should decide today to go and live in America and I take $100 million to America, they won't recognize it. And if I live there for a whole year and I want to buy anything, they will ask for my credit history. In which case, the society encourages credit. I'm saying this because we have to think of our society. How many people have these plastic cards? It's becoming common, but there you have credit cards. Up till now, airlines, hotels, they're asking me to come and collect credit cards. So it's nice if we understand where we're coming from, where he is coming from. And we will dwell, or we should be dwelling on what operates in this country. How many of us can go to the bank and say, I want a loan, give me credit? They are begging you to take credit. They are forcing you to take credit. Even to buy a house where you pay mortgage is credit. To buy a car, credit. So it's very easy for you to be indebted in the US. And because it's very easy to be indebted, it's difficult to pay your debts. And as a result, you lose your properties, including mortgages, your houses. And I can tell you, even from experience, 2 of my children have lost houses. He talked about going up 1 million, 4 million, back down to 0. The president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, he will tell you how many times he went up and came down, up and down. But that is that society. I'm sorry I'm taking time. But it is necessary for us to know that how do we operate here? We probably will contribute money, cooperatives, and we take a loan, and we are supposed to pay back. That won't make us debtors to the tune of millions of naira. A number of us will go to the banks. Unfortunately, we don't do things right. If we did, then we'll be in such situations where we won't be able to sleep at night because of debt. Having painted that picture, I will tell you that I have also had my ups and downs. But as we go on, a number of them will come into the open. I have lost money. I've invested millions, so to say. And even up till now, there are certain investments I have made that came to nothing. But because I didn't put all my eggs in one basket, you lose some, you win some. You will lose money. It's not a prayer, but it's a fact of life. They talk about the market. The market swings. One classical example. 1 year ago, Nigerian brewery shares went for 190 naira. A week ago, Nigerian brewery shares was going for 105 naira. So you can see the swing up and down, up and down. And that is life. But if you have multiple streams of income, if this goes up and that goes down, you balance out. I think I should stop at this point.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, Papa Smith has mentioned quite a few things, and I'm also trying to balance things out in terms of the economy over there and the economy here. And like I said earlier too, it is also gradually coming upon us. Issues of credit card are now becoming prevalent. Issues of even loans are becoming easier to even get. Nowadays, I think if Mr. Parkwins can bear me out, there's this loan for market women and vendors, 50,000 naira. They're expected to pay back instrumentally over 6 months on weekly basis. Statistics have shown that even a larger percentage of them have defaulted. So if they, and unfortunately now, because we now have BVNs, they can begin to block people's accounts and people's transactions via the BVN. So it is gradually coming upon us. So we need to understand that very, 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 very well. And also the issue of cooperatives. We find cooperatives close up because people have borrowed and refuse to pay back. And even in some cases, unfortunately now, with microfinance banks, Microfinance banks are taking people's properties like anything else right now. Because people are borrowing and they cannot pay back. But just quickly, let's get back to this topic. It says that everyone else has gotten it. Like I said, it's important for us to understand that at some point in time, somebody else too has also passed through that same phase. Or somebody is even passing through the same phase even right now. And that person may also be the person actually sitting beside you, is still passing through a financial phase or a financial challenge right now. So it's not really you alone going through that phase. Everybody else is also going through that phase. Then he also said something. He says that money only amplifies the person who you are. Money amplifies who you are. If you are a good person, it amplifies your goodness and people begin to call you a philanthropist. But if you are a bad person, it also amplifies that bad nature in you and you become cruel and you begin to oppress people because you have money. So money in itself is not bad. Money takes on the nature of who it is that has the possession of it. I think this goes to married people. It says number one cause of problem in most marriages is the money problem. Sure. Is that true? Sure. Do you have a witness? Is that true? Sure. All right. So which means that we need to do something about it. It says that we tend to think that being a multimillionaire is an overnight success, especially after messing up with money. You will find out he was illustrating and he said that he was on a show, on a TV program, and the guy was saying that, how did you bounce back? Because we think that it is just overnight, but it is actually a process thing. I want to just stop a bit. Okay, let me just add the last one, then move into Lola. We tend to blame somebody else. I think this is common. This is very common, especially, he said in their own society it is common. I think it's also prevalent here. We blame everybody else. I invest in the stock market, I blame the stock market. I buy a car, I blame the car owner. I lose money, I blame Buhari. We blame everybody else other than ourselves for whatever mess we find ourselves in the area of money. I want Lola to just share with us. I will give her the prerogative to tell us what she has also accomplished. I don't want to say it, so that if she wants to, she can. What she has accomplished, and I can tell you that she has accomplished quite a lot in terms of financial independence and financial freedom. How were you able to do this? How were you able to, let me use the terminology by Dave Ramsey, bounce back or process back?
Good morning. Well, like he said, everybody, one way or the other, has found themselves in a financial mess, which is true. And there's something he said which I want to hammer on. It's actually behavior. 80% of what we are able to do with money is our behavior. A lot of us hear these things and we don't do them. I made up my mind at a point in time to do the things I read. I read a book by him, Total Money Makeover, and some other books. I've actually, there was a time when I say deficit, for about 2.5 million, as in, so I've also been in a mess before. But I sat down and talked to myself and said, you have to think of tomorrow. Because the truth is, if I say that, okay, now I'm in this mess, this is why I'm in the mess, which is something everybody would want to do, blame somebody else. See, this happened to me because maybe the bank increased the rate, maybe I couldn't get enough money to do this. You keep blaming every other person. We will not get out of that situation. So what I did was to come to that realization that you are in a mess, and then looked at ways to get out of that mess and made up my mind not to go back to that mess. Now, Dave says something. It is a process. It is not an overnight thing. It doesn't happen within 24 hours that, oh, now I'm in a mess. I have a deficit. By tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and then a miracle will happen. Yes, miracles may happen, but it's a process. It's something that we have to, on our own, make a habit. Make it part and parcel of us. That, okay, I found myself in this situation. What and what will I do to get out of it? I actually went back to the bank and told the bank, okay, I'm going to be paying you back, but I'm going to keep a little out of everything I'm paying back. Because before, I didn't so much believe in having cash. I would just keep and then put it in something. But I discovered that I just kept going down and down and down. And each time I tried to pay back, it seems as if the money was not enough to even pay back the debt, not to talk of, and it was like a revolving loan, you know, and I kept rolling and rolling. But after coming to the fact that I must get out of this, I sat down and I mapped out my plans. You have to get out of this. How do you get out of this? It is a habit. There are some things you must take out of your life. There are some things you must cut down. Some excesses you just have to cut down. It's not everything that has to be bought. It's not everything that has to be acquired. There are some that you just have to delay it for tomorrow. Everybody can eat chicken, yes. But if you live like no one is living today, tomorrow you live like no one is living. So if I cannot afford chicken now, because I have to borrow money for that chicken, then it's better I just take my food without chicken, so that tomorrow I can take my chicken, my snail, my streams, and whatever. So it was just a decision to sit down, look at the mess I was, and then think of how to walk the process. And it's continuous. It's not that you get to a level and you say, now I'm out of debt, I relax. It has to be continuous. 80% behavior. It's what makes us financially independent.
Thank you very much, Lola. I think most of us can relate with this. I'm very sure some may be thinking, oh, 2.5 million naira debt. Try, maybe you can have one and see if you'll be able to sleep overnight. But for her to be able to get out of that and be able to put herself on a pedestal, then it is very, very important for us to learn how she was able to do that. And one of the things she said is actually about behavior, which is the central focus of what we are studying and looking at in this session. We will be talking more about debt in the next session after this. Now, you'll also find it fascinating while Ramsey was talking. He said something about that he was trained as a financial expert, but until someone, he ended up being in a financial mess, until somebody opened the scriptures to him and told him that the Bible has something to teach him about money and money management. And I'm posing the question to us this morning: do you really think the Bible has something life-changing to say about money? Do we really think the Bible has something to say about money? Particularly for those who are Christians. I'm not trying to push religion on anybody here this morning, but just speaking from what he has said, it's something for us to just think about. This is one of the things he said. 80% of behavior determines financial peace, and it's 20% of head knowledge. Somebody said something, says that you cannot, I think I have it much later in this slide, it says that you cannot pray yourself out of a trouble you behaved yourself into. You know, oftentimes we behave ourselves into a situation and we end up going to mountains after mountains to pray about it and think that we can ultimately get ourselves out of that problem. It's not possible. You can't pray yourself out of a problem you behaved yourself into. And it says that what we're getting into the crux of it, the basic behavioral principles we need to imbibe for us to get on a pedestal of financial peace. It says that I discovered this really easy stuff, that it's easy to understand it. And most of the things we're going to be talking about, it's very easy. Very simple things. How many of you know that there are small keys that open big doors? It's a small key that drives a mighty ship. But it works, and it does work every time as much as we can apply it. But it is really, really hard. Really, really hard to do. He said something, says, if I get the guy I see in the mirror to behave, it will be the skinny it will be skinny and rich. I think you should turn to your neighbor and say, if you can get the guy, please now talk to your neighbor, face your neighbor and tell your neighbor, if you can get the guy you see in the mirror every morning to behave, that guy is most likely to be skinny, but he will be tremendously rich. You know, what does that tell us? That the fault is not somebody else's, it is yours. The bulk stops at your table. It is you that have to do something about it. And we also need to understand that it requires process. It does not just happen overnight. Sorry, I'm constrained because of time. We'll get into the video. Afterwards, I'll come back. We'll talk more with my panelists, and this time the audience will also have time to talk. This next session will stretch for about 26 minutes of video teaching. Then we'll come back for about 20 minutes to interact. So it will be talking about the 5 basic principles of biblical finance. So just relax and listen.
Win with money. First thing you want to do if you want to win with money is debt. Get out of debt. Now that's pretty basic stuff. No kidding, Dave. That's a great idea. But, you know, the truth is debt equals risk. I have done detailed research, in-depth research, and I have found out that 100% of the foreclosures occur on homes with a mortgage. Debt equals risk. The way the Bible says that, it says the borrower is slave to the lender. You ever felt that way? Oh, I've felt that way. I know what that feels like. It's called less than fun. You know, slaves don't have any options. They have to do what they're told. They put bumper stickers on their car that says, I owe, so off to work I go. They're stuck. Slaves have to keep a job they hate because they got to pay the bills. Slaves aren't really generous people either. It's hard for them to give. It's hard to give when you can't hardly just pay the bills that you owe. Got a lot of masters in your life. It's hard to serve 2 masters, Jesus said. You hearing the Bible ringing through this? It's there. It's hard to live like this. When all the money comes in and all the money goes out and only the names are changed to protect the innocent. Your checkbook sounds like a wind tunnel. Whew, straight through. And one old boy, he said, I just want direct deposit to the grocery store. It all goes over there anyway. Car payments. Fleeced your car. You got MasterCard. Who named that anyway? You discovered bondage? Or American distress? It's real, isn't it? It's real. People got a student loan that's been around so long they think it's a pet. But what would it be like to have no payments? What would it be like to make the decision that I'm going to get completely out of debt? You know, I got rid of my credit cards after I went broke. Number one, they took them. But number 2, I never went back and got them again. Because, you know, I got to talking to millionaires, and I've talked to thousands of millionaires in my life. I have never met a millionaire who said, Dave, you know, I made it all with my Discover points. Those airline miles, that was my breakthrough financial moment. I have never heard that, and yet I have met with hundreds of thousands of families who have been less than blessed by these things. To the point you could even say they were cursed. Well, you can use them responsibly. Well, yeah, you can use a lot of stuff responsibly that's stupid. And that's your rationalization. I have debit cards, one on my business, one on my personal account, and it turns out they do everything your credit card will do except put you in debt. The only problem is you have to have the money. You can't buy stuff you don't have. We'll get to that in a minute. So we just said goodbye to Home Depot. See you later, J.C. Penney's. Buy Sears. We'll have to buy your tools at the flea market. Victoria's Secret. They take cash. It's okay. It's okay. And so we went about the business of having plastic surgery. A plastectomy, if you will. And you know, the weird thing is, if you don't have any payments, breathe that in for just a second. What if you didn't have a car payment? You know the average car payment in America today is $478 over 84 months? If you take $478 and invest that in a decent growth stock mutual fund from age 30 to age 70, you'll have $5.6 million. Hope you like the car. You're trapped by buying stuff you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't really like. Because there you sit in that $600 car payment at the stoplight going, just impress somebody you'll never meet. That cost you $1,000 just then. You got to make a decision how you're going to live. And I figured this out to be true. When we went broke, the borrower truly is slave to the lender, and I decided I wasn't going to live that way anymore. And I drew a line in the sand and I said, I'm done. I got to tell you, it means you don't get to do some things that you really want to do. But it turns out if God wants you to do something, He'll send you the money. Shut up. Quit your whining. Really, because that's what debt is. It's financial whining, isn't it? I want it. It's exactly what it is. And then you use these sophisticated words and language and intellect to completely rationalize it, and it feels all good to you, and everybody looks at you as going, you are so stupid. You look good, but you are dumb. And that's what's going on. And it's going on all around the world right now. It turns out that this is not some ancient scripture. It's the truth. It's how things work. The second one is you need to act your wage. You need to learn to live on less than you make. You are not in Congress. The Bible says it this way. It says, a foolish man devours all he has. If you spend everything you make, according to Scripture, you're a fool. Now, don't get mad at me. God said it. But I've been there. I've been a fool. And you don't want to be a biblical fool. This is not a greeting like, hey, fool, okay? This is like, when you read about a biblical fool in Proverbs, this is somebody who hasn't got a chance. And you don't have a chance if you spend everything you make. You have to learn to live on less than you make. And you know, that leads you to the scripture that says godliness with contentment is great gain. You know, contentment is probably the most powerful financial principle there is. Because if you're okay with your car, if you're okay with your clothes, if you're okay with your house, if you're okay, suddenly you can just kind of calm down and the debt starts going away and the savings can come and the giving will happen and life starts flowing the way it's supposed to. But instead, we are in the feverish acquisition mode all around the world. Give me. And we don't think we've got the gimmies. We don't feel like one of those 4-year-old kids that we say, you had the gimmies. We don't say that to ourselves, but that's the way our culture has been acting and reacting. And I've done it too. I've done it with zeros on the end, so I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying it doesn't work because you're a fool. And fools don't prosper. So, act your wage. It's the only chance you got. And then we need to get on a budget. If you worked for a company called You Incorporated and you manage money for You Incorporated the way you manage money for you now, would you fire you? Don't answer that. If your job was to manage money, I mean, it's amazing to me. People do stupid stuff and then they say, Lord, bless me. And God's going, No, I mean, have you read the parable of the talents? Those that manage well get to do more. That's what it says. If you take care of the little things, you're trustworthy to others. I got 250 people working on my team right now. If I got somebody misbehaves in the little things, you think I promote them to run the whole deal? I mean, if you're working at Burger King and you do a great job, you know, they'll promote you from fries to Whopper Flopper. Right? And if you keep going and do a bad job, do you think you get to be regional manager? No, you go back to the fries if you do a bad job. I've got a teenage son, and I've been teaching him to drive over the last many years, and he's been driving now for a couple years, and we're doing pretty good with it. So far, no problems, and lots of threats from Dad. But you know, when he's 16 years old, you know what he is behind the wheel? Incompetent. Okay, the state will give him a license, but that doesn't make him competent. So you think I'm giving this boy a Viper? You think he's getting a new Corvette and go from 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds? No, he gets a 92 Chevette. You know? Give him something he can't hurt himself with, because he's not competent. You know why? Because I'm a loving father. I'm only going to give him what he can handle and has shown competence to handle. Because if he's not competent to handle it, it won't be a blessing to him. Oh, he'd be excited to get a brand new Corvette. But that doesn't mean it'd be a blessing. He'd probably kill himself in it, or somebody else worse. You know? And so, you know, your loving father is not going to give you stuff that will harm you. And if you can't handle a little bit of money, he's not going to give you a bunch of it. You'll look like you won the lotto and be bankrupt in 5 years. Get out of control with yourself. So, got to get on a plan. Jesus said it this way. He said, "For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost to see whether he has enough to finish it? Lest he get halfway up and is unable to finish. And all who see him begin to mock him and say, 'This man began to build and was unable to finish.' You better have a plan, or you'll get halfway up and you'll be unable to finish." That's Jesus. Read it, red letters. That's the man talking. Don't build it. You wouldn't build a house without a blueprint. If you hired a contractor to build a $4 million house and he'd laid out a paper bag on the front of his truck and said, "We're just going to do it like this," and started sketching, you'd be going, no, next. And that's exactly what God does. So in your working lifetime, you're going to handle $4 or $5 million, $6 million, $10 million. Act like it. Be responsible. Be an adult. On paper, on purpose, before the month begins. Sit down, give every dollar a name, and agree on it with your spouse, for those of you that are married. You got to do it. You won't win unless you do. The next one is you have to learn to save money. If you don't save money, you'll be broke your whole life. See, for years I was really good at earning money, but I wasn't good at handling money, so I tried to out-earn my stupidity. Yeah, that's happened to other people, I can tell. You can't out-earn your stupidity. You have to learn to save money. And we teach people to save money for 3 basic things. Number 1, we teach them to save for an emergency fund. Now, Grandma said that. Grandma said to save for a rainy day. Visual aid. You need to save for a rainy day. You know why? It's going to rain. Get ready. Money Magazine says 78% of you will have a major negative financial event in any given 10-year period of time in your life. Something's going to happen. The transmission's going to go out. A kid's going to get sick. Aunt Gertie's going to die, and we got to bury her. Something's going to come up. You're going to get laid off. The unexpected pregnancy, which has always kind of tickled me. But here's the deal. You better be ready. Life's coming. It's coming. And if you hadn't lived long enough for life to knock you over, I'm just here to warn you. I'm an old guy. It's going to knock you over. And it's kind of cool if life shows up and you have money. Because you know what this is? It's Murphy repellent. You know who Murphy is. If it can go wrong, it will. When you have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside, Murphy will leave you alone. He will visit your neighbors. Have you ever noticed that when you're broke is when everything goes wrong? Your life looks like a country song. But when you put $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000, whatever 3 to 6 months of expenses is, because that ought to be your emergency fund, between you and life says, that one's ready, I'll leave him alone. And he backs off. In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil. Wise people save choice food and oil. You're wise if you save. You're a fool if you devour all you have. You get in the parallels here, the perpendiculars here. They're all here for you. God's just being real plain. He's telling you, kiddo, I love you, and this is your little instruction book. If you do it this way, it works. If you don't do it, it doesn't. Now, it's not a sin if you don't. Debt is not a sin. It's biblically stupid. But it's not a salvation issue. It's your father going, What am I going to do? That's one of my stupid kids. You know? The second thing you need to save for, other than emergencies, is you need to save up and pay cash for things. If you pay cash for things, you know what happens? You spend less. If you take 10 or 15 Uncle Benjamin Franklin's, $100 bills, and put those in your pocket, you carry them around a little while, you become kind of attached to them. It's kind of like, Uncle Ben. It's part of the family, right? And then you just go, you get ready to spend something, you lay one of these things down, you have an ouchie moment. It's like, I don't think I want that. Completely changes the whole equation. McDonald's did focus group studies, and they found with credit cards that you spend 47% more out of McDonald's than if you spend with cash. You know why? Because it hurts. You're standing there with that plastic going, okay, supersize that, give me the apple pie, and I'll pay for his. Right? You walk up with this thing, you're like, dollar menu, you're on your own. Changes the whole perspective of things, doesn't it? When you spend this, you feel it. There's an emotional attachment to this. And Dun & Bradstreet did a study on other things that says you spend 12 to 18% less than when you spend with plastic. Buy with cash. Plus, you can kind of just go in the stereo store and walk around. And they'll go, oh, well, can we help you? Yeah, I bet you get service, don't you? Then you go up to pay, and the little guy goes, whoa, dude, like this one's got real money. Get the manager. I don't know how to ring this up. But you can get a deal doing this, can't you? It embarrasses my wife. She says, you embarrass me. Well, that's just a side benefit of the process. And guess what? If you save money, you also learn to invest money. Do you know $100 a month invested in a decent growth stock mutual fund from age 30 to age 70 is $1,176,000. Pizza and cable money, and you can retire with dignity. For what we spend on lattes, you can avoid retiring and buying the cookbook 72 Ways to Prepare Alpo and love it. Invest for your future. Invest for your kids' college. Invest. But you don't have any money to invest if you didn't have money for emergencies. And if you hadn't stayed out of debt. And if you're not on a plan. See how these things start to work together? If you start working a simple system like this and you really do it, it'll rock your world. It'll change everything, and it'll allow you to do the last one. And that's give. Oh, this is the best thing you can do with money. This is the most fun there is with money. Now, you know, certainly you can tithe to your local church. That's the basics. We start there, right? But, I mean, you get a little bit of money, you can have some fun. Got a lady working on our team. And we give out profit-sharing bonuses. We share our profits. What a neat idea with the people that work for us. And you know, her bonus every month, she's been with us a while, is $300, $400, $500 a month, depending on how good our profits are. She does pretty good just on the bonus, you know. And she and her husband decided a few years ago, they're not rich people, but she decided that they were going to start a ministry. And what they do is they take their profit-sharing check and they cash it in cash, and they go to the local Waffle House. And they pray before they go in that God will seat them at somebody's seat that waits on them that needs some help. She said the first time we did it, we went in there and the little lady was pregnant. And she's like, thank you, God. Because listen, if you're pregnant and you're working in Waffle House, you know what? You need a job. This is somebody's working because they need to. You know? No, not picking on Waffle House or anything, but that's tough work, right? Can you imagine what happened when they left a $400 tip and went to the car? How fun is that? Dave, thanks so much for sharing the profits with us. My husband and I are having so much fun. We decided, based on a suggestion of you last Thanksgiving, to create our Waffle House ministry. We take money from the profit sharing, set it aside, and then we pray for God to give us wisdom and place a person that needs the extra money as our waitress. Then we enjoy a fun meal, leave a big tip, and leave feeling giddy. The last waitress we had was very young and very pregnant, and as soon as she walked up to our table, I thought, wow, God, this is going to be so cool for her. Is that broke people can't do that? People that don't live on a plan and have a bunch of payments can't do that. People that don't save money can't do that. We've got forums on our website at MyTotal.
Thank you very much. Sorry, we just had to stop abruptly. We'll still take the last closing session, just about some couple of minutes. But he has mentioned 5 key behavioral traits that will ensure that we win with money and have financial peace. I'll first throw it to the audience, then I'll come back to my panelists. But before, he mentioned 5 things. The first one is what? Get out of debt. But I want to rephrase that. Some may not be in debt. It also means don't get into debt. The second one is what? spend less than you earn. Act your wage, spend less than you earn. Thank you for rephrasing it into what we will understand here. The third one is what? Be on a budget. Make a budget. The fourth one is save and invest. The fifth one, give. All right. Anybody in the audience wants to say anything or wants to ask a question as to what he has said? Then afterwards, I would come back to my panelists. But these are, from his own view, 5 key behavioral traits that he thinks, if we imbibe, will help us win with money and also have financial peace. I think Dr. Abib was actually asked a question that, what behavior do you need to get out of a financial mess? And the reply was so stunning, simple and stunning. He says that, do you know that it is the same behavior you imbibe to get out of debt or a financial mess? It is the same behavior you also need to maintain financial peace. Because if you retract, you will find yourself back. And do you also think, I'm trying to stall for time for anybody in the audience before coming back to my panelists. If you have anything to say, if you have anything to ask. And I also believe very strongly that these principles are the elements that most of the people that Pastor Smith showed to us are actually living on. Most of them. I'm not saying all of them, because you'll find that some of them have also found themselves back in financial mess over and over and over again. Anyone from the audience, you have a question to ask, you have something to say about what he has shared. He has shared 5 behavioral traits, which I also believe, it's also a trait I am also working on, imbibing. It should be part and parcel of me every single day going forward. Anyone in the audience, you have anything to add, to say, or you have a question to ask? Sir, all right. Anybody? Okay, Papa Smith, let me just come back to you, since nobody has anything to say as regards what he has said, which means they obviously agree with what he has said. So just shed light on it in line with these behavioral traits as to how it has, you have imbibed, how it has also helped you over the years to where you are at the moment.
Thank you very much, Lekon. I would like to ask us here, please feel very free. Feel very free to own up to yourselves. How many people here are in debt? Okay. I know that, again, going back to Ramsey, students, college students in the US, they end up with a big, huge debt because, again, society gives them this loan. And by the time they are graduating, college there is a university. By the time they are graduating, they have a debt of 60,000, 70,000, and if you're a medical person, 120,000. You are just starting your life, and yet you have this backlog of debt that you must settle. Fortunately, and I say fortunately, in this country, we parents, some of you here will become parents, some of you here are parents, you work pretty hard so that the young ones, the children, will have a good, sound education. And in this country, we take it for granted. We say it is a right. I am for it, what we do in this country. Because then the scripture tells me to cater for my children and cater for my children's children. Going back to debt, as much as possible, I don't know what you are owing for or on. But as much as possible, try hard to clear the debt. If, for instance, you take a loan from a bank and they give you 90 days to pay back, you will discover that most of the time, or 100 days or 6 months, most people don't pay back. They can't pay back, and then the interest rate just compounds. And at the end of the day, you end up with maybe 2.5 million that you have to rethink about. But this happens to all of us. So, as far as debt is concerned, I can tell you one thing. I don't owe a dime. I'm not bragging about it, but I sleep well at night. At this stage in my life, I'm only 74. My money works for me. If I like now, I will sleep. And I get up when I like. I don't owe. I will tell you something about owing. Once I owed on my house, and I will tie this to opportunities. When I was brewery manager, if I have said this before, please forgive me, but I think it's something you can latch onto. I was brewery manager in Ibadan in 1984, running the Nigerian breweries plant. And I was thinking long term, that is my plan, that I would like to live in Ibadan at the end of the day. So I spoke to the governor, who provided me with land, and I started building the house. Just truly, I got a loan from Nigerian breweries, and they were deducting from my salary. I left Ibadan in 1989, went to Lagos. I was put on the board of Nigerian breweries, and then they posted me to Ghana to go and run the operations in Ghana. Now, what am I getting at? At that point of transfer, I was asked if I would take my family with me, and as at that point in time, I was living in Ikoyi as brewery manager Lagos and a director of Nigerian breweries. And I said, I'm not taking my family with me to start off with, and I will not live in Ikoyi, because I went into Ikoyi with a briefcase. If I was to leave my family in Ikoyi, it would have meant I will come back from Ghana, and when I finish with Nigerian breweries, I take my briefcase and I walk out. I said, I have a house in Ibadan. I will transfer my family there. Believe it or not, although they were deducting money from my salary, if I hadn't built that house, Nigerian breweries would not have been paying me $500,000 a year into my account, because my family, they had to look after my family, but I had built a house. So I transferred my family to the house, and Nigerian breweries, they were paying me $500,000. By the time I finished in Ghana, I came back, the house had been paid for. So when opportunities arise, please seize them. If you work for a company and they have housing estate, they put you in there, think of tomorrow. Don't steal. And when you think of tomorrow, then you will work out a plan and say, look, yeah, when I was here in Ibadan, I lived in the company house. At Alakia, it was just briefcase. When I was going out, it was briefcase, finish. But think about that. Try not to owe debts. Wage, can I go on?
Just a minute.
1 minute.
minute,
All right.
sir.
On wage, learn to live on your wage. Don't eat with 10 fingers or 5 fingers. Use 3 to eat. And make sure you save, right? I can tell you now that if I look at my phone, my budget is there. It shouldn't surprise you. I have a budget up till now because I earn a pension. I know what is coming in from all sources, and I live according to my means. And I even spend much less because I always have surplus. I always make sure I have surplus. He talked of emergencies. Yes, there will be emergencies. Now, I knew my mother would die. I didn't pray to die before my mother. And when my mother died, within 1 week, we had given her a burial. He has told you, I know I will die. My children should be thinking of how they will bury me. But I have bought my grave for my wife and myself. I will save them all the trouble. I hope they don't make Owambe party. When I'm gone, that money can be usefully spent on people in need. Do I give? I don't know.
Take opportunities. You know, I think towards the closing session, you'll see Ramsey says that you live like no one else, so that you live like no one else. If we can just take time out not to think about what somebody next door is thinking about us, I think our life will just be much, much better. I really don't want to dwell so much on the issue of debt because we will treat that in the next session, like I have said. But there are little things that, take for example, school fees. Like in the US, they give them loans. But do you know that most of us, I can assure you, if not all parents here, most parents here have cooperative loans that they've taken to pay their children's school fees. And you will find out that the cooperative loan you have taken to pay your children's school fees, you are paying back in 1 year, and your child will spend 4 years. Is the loan even commensurate with what you are using it for? And sometimes even the loan is now handed over to the child when the child eventually graduates to start life with by paying back. How many, particularly civil servants, you take clothes, take this, take that in the office and say, when my salary comes in the month end? It's debt. We may not have MasterCards, but we have what we do. But let me pause so that I'll allow Lola to say something before moving to the closing session.
I would say there are credit cards now. A lot of banks give credit cards, even they beg you to come and take it. So we have it. Aside credit cards, we have organizations that will tell you this piece of land goes for 2 million if you pay cash, but if you're going to be paying instrumentally, by the time you calculate it, you discover that you're paying like 3 million for that same plot of land. Now, some things he said, you know, he talks about the fact that we should save and pay cash. We should try as much as possible to pay cash. When we have this mindset that I'll pay cash for whatever I want to buy, we discover that we will actually buy the things that we need, not the things that we want. He said debt is I want it. So if we use cash, we end up buying the things that we need. Most of the time, if I want something and I don't have the cash for it, I simply say it has not become a need. When it's a need, you would save up for it. You would definitely save up for it. And he talked about the fact that we should have a budget. There is need to give every naira that we have a name. That's the way he puts it. He actually used dollars, but I'm saying every naira that we have or that we will have, we should give it a name. Papa Smith said he has his budget on his phone. Well, if there's another way to carry my budget, I carry it everywhere. So that if I find myself somewhere and I say, oh, I need this, provided I check and see, sorry, it's not on the plan, then it has to wait for when it be on the plan. And lastly, he talked about giving. I I think there's need to give. When you give to others, God and others, you find joy in it. Truth of the matter is, we are actually known not by what we have, what we have acquired. It's actually by how many people's life we have touched, how many people we have given to. Thank you.
Well, let me just start from the aspect of giving. How many people have been following the news on social media about the issue of tithes and pastors and all the rest? Now, what do you think is really the underlying factor? It's because people really don't have. Because those who have are not part of those discussing about the issue of tithes. In the real sense of it. Bill Gates he's not paying tithe. I don't know whether he's paying tithe. I don't think he is. But he's giving a whole lot. A whole lot. Even Dangote is giving a whole lot in terms of employment. He's just constructing a plant to start assembling Peugeots in Nigeria now. He's giving a whole lot. So the truth of the matter is that oftentimes what influences our giving or not is what we actually have. That's what influences it. Getting back to the issue of debt, so that I will also allow the person who take to also handle that. How many of us borrow to bury people? They must know that this woman has children. You borrow to bury. These are things that are creeping on us, and they are debts. But I want to quickly emphasize on the aspect that it says on savings. You need to break down your savings into 3 parts. Like I said, the first portion, save for emergencies. Because emergencies will come. Oftentimes what we do is that we save thinking that we will use the money to invest. And when emergencies come, we dip our hands into it and spend it. We need to save for emergencies. Let's set that aside. We need to save for investment purposes. Then we need to save to spend. And really think about it. You can take as many things on credit if there is credit available and say you'll pay later. But if you actually have saved up money, you will think twice before spending it. So these are very, very important things that we need to do. I'll just run through again so that we'll get into the closing. Have we gained 1 or 2 things? Have we gained some 1 or 2 things this morning? It says, number 1, get out of debt. And he backed it up with scripture. It says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Second, act your wage. That means live within your means. Don't live beyond what you earn. A foolish man devours all he has. Now, let me just say something here. I know someone here will be thinking, but I don't earn much. Still live within what you have. The only difference is that the lifestyle will be different. Our senators and politicians have so much money, but that is not stopping them from still stealing more. It is because they've not imbibed this of living within what is available to them. So don't think you won't do that when you get to the Senate if you are not living within what you earn right now. Third one, get on a budget. Have a plan. Have a plan. For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? Let's have a plan. You know what money is coming in. Budget on it. Know what it's going to execute. Save and invest. I don't think you can invest if you don't save. I don't think so. And I always believe that savings is the first step to financial freedom. It is the first step to financial freedom. And that's why you'll also find out in the financials of any organization, the first item on the asset is always cash. It is arranged in order of what can you turn to cash easily. That's the way the asset side is arranged. So cash is important. People say cash is king. So we need to save. It says, in the house of the wise are stores of choice foods and oil. Then the last one, give. Bring all the tithes into the stores. That's like I said, for Christians, for Muslims, I think these are the basic aspect of giving. to give in the household of faith that you belong to, but more importantly, to give to people. People say, some destitute and all, they should go and work. You'll find it's because they don't have to give oftentimes. That's the reason. You go to a restaurant, you can't even tip the person that has served you and served you very well. And you say, Ashibungba salary. These are the things that we need to do as to give and support a cause. It's also important. Now the closing lap, we'll just listen to the final lap. It's just about 6 minutes thereabout. Then we'll wrap up this session. I want to believe that we've learned you have something to say, sir? All right, sir. Just quickly, within 30 seconds, please can you give him a mic?
My name is Sadebo Ali. I'm very grateful for this kind of seminar, but I want to talk about on business, getting out of debt in business, especially for startup. Because in Nigeria, I want to be practical. If you want to start a business, there are some business you need. There are some business that you have a lot of money. That is, to run it every day, you need money. Especially in retailing business. So I don't know how can you get out of debt from this business? Because, for example, if you want to buy a goods now, you have to collect loans. You have to get people from people that are selling it. Please come back when you are. When I finish with this product, I will repay you. How can we get our step? Because this thing you have to run it. You have to run it day in, day out. There is no way, to me, I should not say that's how it supposed to be. There is no way you can run it without having all those things, without getting to this so-called debt. So how can we escape it? We may not like it, but I think in Nigeria, that's how we normally run it. Because if you want to, for example, all these sheep, you have to get a loan of 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira. From bank, you have to get a loan of 500,000 to buy all these products. And from there, to run those business, there are a lot of challenges that will come up and that will not make you to pay all those loans or debt. How can we do it in business?
Thank you, sir. I think the point is made. Yes, sir. Anyone in the audience wants to answer? Sir? Okay, I have two people. Please, if you can make your point in just 10 seconds, please.
Okay, as far as starting up a business, you should have enough capital to carry you for a minimum of 6 months. Minimum of 6 months, and that way you would not have to borrow. And also your profit margin should be enough where you can take out for the business itself, take out for your personal life or whatever the case may be. But you need to have money to start the business, not going in borrowing money to start a business. You always be in debt because the interest rate will just consume all your profit. When you look at the rate, maybe 24%, how much is your profit on the product itself?
Thank you. I think the gentleman also has something to add.
Thank you very much. She said what I wanted to say. But in addition, Dangote is a billionaire, but he also owes a lot of people. That's because in business, there's something called using other people's money to run the business. Because that way your profit margin will actually be bigger than when you decide to do just with your money. Yeah, so long as you keep making more money and paying back, then it's not a personal debt. It's a debt on the business, and the business is generating funds to service the debt.
All right, thank you, sir. Sir? All right, Lola?
Okay, I would start by saying it's good to have your own money before starting up a business. And then it's not all the time that you need money for every business. I wouldn't know which business you're starting with. I remember when I wanted to start up something and I didn't have enough money. What I did was I asked the person, can I get these goods? I sell it and return it to you. So sometimes you start businesses with what we call goodwill. Goodwill is also a capital. It doesn't have to be cash all the time. It's not advisable to start a business with loan. It's not advisable. Now, you mentioned Dangote. Dangote did not start his business with loan. The truth of the matter is, if you look at the interest of 24, of 26, of 28, even of 30%, you discover that all your life, of your life, you remain a slave to the bank. Now, in economics, they teach us that you should have debt equity ratio. No, it's not bad, but they also have a limit to it. Now, if you're talking of debt equity ratio, you have a business, you want to put in other people's money. If other people's money is more than your own money, then you remain a slave to them. And that's why if you want to buy a car, or you want to buy an asset, and you go to a bank, they ask you for a percentage. Now, let's have a scenario. I go to a bank now, I say, I want to buy a car of 1 million, I'm dropping 900,000, I only need 100,000. And somebody comes and says, I'm going to drop 100,000, give me 900,000. Please, out of the two of them, who will remain a slave forever? The one with 100,000, that's if we have to, we get out of it on time. The one with 900,000 will continually be in debt because the rate will not remain at 24. I hope you know as a bank, they can unilaterally increase the rate based on money market rates or prices. So if they started with you at 20% and tomorrow MMR increases, they can tell you MPR increases, and they can tell you now it's already 27. And you say, I started at this. Before you know it, they say, sorry, it's now 30%. There's nothing you will do. You are owing, you have to pay. Because the condition is when we increase the rate, we have the right to do it alone. So I will advise that if you can, as much as possible, don't be in debt. If you are, you can re-strategize and get out of it. I would just advise that.
Thank you very much. I think it's pretty been settled. I know it's a common thing, particularly with small businesses, but we need to understand that it is because we have a mindset that money is our problem in business. That's the reason why we think we always get ourselves into debt. Because the real truth about business is that if your business is not making money, you don't have to, you should not even go and borrow. Even from a bank. You must already have a stated cash flow. You understand? But I think that is where the basic problem is because we already think that money is the problem when it has to do with business. Sometimes, instead of starting your business, you could leverage on another person's business by being an apprentice. And from there, you build your network, you know how the business runs. Because if you go and borrow, you are using somebody else's money to learn the process of that business, and you will squander it. Very certain. And you will eventually be in debt. So, but it is not a discussion for today. It is very, very possible. And by the way, I need to say something. Because I listened to Dangote some couple of months ago, and Dangote says he has paid all his debts. That he's not owing anybody. In actual fact, the people that have given him money are investors. He's not owing them. If he loses it, they all lose together. So we need to understand that. So we'll take the last lap of the teaching. Are we ready? It's the closing lap. But it is very, very important. These 5 key things that we've mentioned today are behavioral traits that we need to imbibe. I can tell you, the moment you start writing down your expenses, your life is going to change. Just start from that aspect. Write down your expenses every day. Your life will change. Because you will see where you are spending your money just frivolously. You will see the good things that you've used your money for, and those unnecessary things you are spending your money from. And even from that point of view alone, it transforms your life. It is because we don't write things down and we just spend just like that. I think if we can adopt that alone, starting from there, it adjusts every other thing about our lives. Are we ready?
Total Money Makeover, and the people with the forums all write in and stuff. And one of the ladies wrote this in the other day. She sent this to us. She says, I bought my husband, who's a captain in Iraq right now, a 97 Mazda Miata. A 97 Mazda Miata. So when he comes home from Iraq, it'll be here. It has 108,000 miles on it. I paid $2,800 for it. Fully aware it needed repairs, and I had budgeted about $3,000 for the repairs. I posted a picture on the Total Money Makeover boards because it's our first cash car, and it's so not like the hoopties that we hear about. A couple of days later, I received a FedEx envelope from a member of the TMMO board. Inside was a heartfelt letter and a check for $1,000 to go towards the repairs. This was from someone who had gotten out of debt and was living on a plan. They were living like no one else, and now they were able to live like no one else. I can't begin to tell you the impact that had on me, having had a really hard year with my husband gone, and especially hard month this month. The gift wiped away so much pain and bitterness for a military wife. $1,000. That's a big hit for $1,000. I mean, there are people that drop $1 million on something and don't get that much fun, or as much fun as $400 on a waitress. Oh my gosh. It'll change your world. It'll rock your world. But you can't do all of these things unless you do all of these things. You can't just get out of debt. You got to save. You can't just save if you don't get out of debt. If you don't have a written plan, it's not going to work. It all weaves together, people. This is how it works. You know why? Because God's not concerned about your money. He doesn't care about your money. He cares about you. He's crazy about you. He's got a plan for you. And He's saying to you, my children, this is how you live. And if you'll live this way, you'll win. And what He's trying to do is He's trying to change the person in your mirror. He wants you to be a better person. Goodness gracious. He wants you to win at a level you've never won before. I mean, how many of us that have kids, I mean, we want good things for our kids, and if we being evil do that, how much more so our Father in heaven? Wow. He's got a game plan for your money. How whacked is that? And it works every single time without fail. Every time you work this, it'll work. Does it work without any bumps in the road? No. Being a servant doesn't work without any bumps in the road, but it is the way to live your life, right? So there's bumps in the road. Get ready. There's going to be people that make fun of you. Broke people will make fun of your plan, which is always a good sign, by the way. If broke people are making fun of your financial plan, that's like fat people making fun of your exercise plan. You know, this is encouraging. So think this through. God has a game plan. Do these basic things over and over. Get out of debt. Act your wage. Live on a written plan. Learn to save, because you're going to need it. And then, most of all, become an awesome, out of control, abundant mentality giver. That's when the whole thing, that's when you know you hit it. That's when you know you hit the sweet spot and the ball's going out of the park. You can feel it then. I encourage you. It's not an easy trip, but it's a trip worth taking. God says to live like no one else so that later you get to live like no one else. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but it yields a harvest of righteousness. It works every time. If you pay a price to win, take these 5 things and go change your world. Lord, we thank you for the folks here today. We thank you for your word, and we thank you for your love to us. It gives us hope.
He emphasized the fact that there are simple things, but they are very, very difficult to do. Because people are going to make fun of you. Your friends are going to make fun of you. But are you living your life for them? Or you have an aspiration and a goal in life that you want to? Papa Smith just told us some couple of minutes ago that he had the opportunity to live in a house in Ikoyi. But after looking at the odds that he will take his briefcase to the house, most people may not even know he doesn't own the house. But he knows that the house does not belong to him. Eventually, he will have to still take his briefcase out. But he took a better option of putting his family in a house here in Ibadan. And right now, they are living peaceably. So, I want to give our panelists the closing shots, 30 seconds each. I'll start from Lola, and Papa Smith will wrap up so that we can end this segment. But I'll just leave Lola to say.
80% behavior, 20% head knowledge. It simply means that if we hear, we don't do, then we cannot actually have financial peace. It's important that these 5 steps we have talked about, very simple. Yes, they seem very simple, but really, it's difficult to do. But we're saying that we should make up our minds to do them. He said they are actually interwoven. They don't stand separately. Get out of debt. whether you like it or not, you must make up your mind to get out of debt. I need debt for business. I need debt for this. I have to do this. I have to do this. It is very key that we get out of it. And we should ensure that we don't eat with all our fingers. Cut your clothes according to your material, not really according to your size. If your material is small, you can join to it and make it better. It's always good to keep a little of everything that we earn. We should live on a budget. Let our life be on a plan. Let our finances be on a plan. And when we do that, we should save. We should have at the back of our mind that emergencies will always come. It will rain. So if it rains, where do you get the umbrella for it? Because every other person will also go for their own umbrella. You may not be able to find somebody that will share their umbrella with you. So we should make up our minds to save for raining days, save for emergencies, endeavor to use our cash to pay. It helps us better to actually use or spend money on the things that we need and not the things that we want. And of course, we can save for the future so that tomorrow we can live like no one is living. And when we do all these things, giving just becomes natural. Thank you.
Well, she has wrapped it all up. But I will have one or two words for the married couples. To you men, you are supposed to be the head of the house. You are supposed to be the provider. And please take your responsibilities seriously. He said something about the divorce rate in America. It is very true. And most of what causes it, you trace back to finance, money. For you wives, I will say, team up with your husbands. More so, I'm sure you will get to hear later on, that if you do a lot of things together, like spending together, like giving together, tithing together, whatever it is, do it together. You will find that the strains on your marriage will be heavily reduced. So far, it's worked for my wife and I. We thank God for it. But a lot can be said about savings. And I want a lot of you to go back. You can say you don't earn enough. There's nothing that is called enough. If you earn 10 naira, please put aside, be it 20 naira, 20 kobo, or 30 kobo, whatever it is, no matter how small. Because if you don't save when you earn small, when you earn big, you won't save. You can try it out. The good Lord would guide us and set us on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, sir. So, the closing thoughts, like you said, no matter how much you earn right now, inculcate the habit of saving. You can practice this and put it 10% out of what you earn goes into emergency fund, 10% goes into a compulsory savings account that you cannot touch, which will be used eventually for investments. I think that will indeed help us. I quoted this earlier, I'm putting it up again. It says, you cannot pray your way out of a problem you behaved yourself into. You may believe it, you may not. We can try it out. But I know that the attendant effect may not be pleasant. And finally, I'll close with this scripture. It says, James chapter 1, 22 to 25. Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourself. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what it looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. I want to thank Papa Smith for his time and being around, sharing with us. I also want to thank Lola for also taking time out to share with us. I want to thank you, everyone, for being around. I want to believe that you've gained some few things. But like Eti said, it's time to go out there, practice practice. It can't be done independently. It's interwoven. You do all together. And I am very sure. Let's start something out from this month, and let's see the difference it makes in our life by the year end. Thank you. God bless you.
I'm sure we're getting something. Are we getting something? Is something changing in you? Is your mindset changing? Are we going to begin to do things differently? All right. It's good to have you all here. Just by the way, before we go for a few minutes of break, we're going to stretch our legs again. So I'm going to ask that we go for coffee. Tea is just there. We'll take a 15-minute break, and we'll be back exactly 12:30 for the next session. And while you do that, please interact. And if you've not registered, please, there's a registration table at the left-hand side here, which is your right-hand side. Please kindly register, put down your details, your biodata, so that we can have it to contact you for other programs such as this down there. God bless you. So let's quickly take our break. 15 minutes. Just make your way through the back to the right-hand side here, which will be on your left this time. To get your tea, your coffee. You can bring it back here. You can take it over there, interact, make new friends, talk about what you've heard about, and then let's get back here and we'll get ready for the next session. God bless you. You are very highly welcome.